Welcome, everybody. It's really fun for me to be here to lead a couple of workshops for Remainders Creative Reuse in Pasadena. Now, these workshops are designed to spotlight the invaluable but underrepresented work of women, especially in the last couple of centuries, and also work of people of color. And so that's what I'm planning to do today for us. The workshop will be inspired by the work of these artists. It will be sometimes a fairly loose inspiration, but when you see their work, hopefully you will be inspired to carry these techniques in your own direction and to your own artistic expression. So we hope to have fun here, and forgive me, I'm a little nervous because it's the first YouTube video I've ever done. So bear with me, and we'll get started. The first artist I want to talk about is Frances Gerhart. Now, Frances Gerhart was born in Illinois. She moved to California in the late 1900s, the late 1800s. And at around that time, Japan had opened to trade and travel. People were very inspired by Japanese art and their visual art and their architecture, and that's what led to the arts and crafts movement actually in the early 20th century. So Frances was actually self-taught. She and her two sisters, May and Edna, all lived together in Pasadena. None of them ever married. They all were very good artists, but Frances is the most well-known. She did woodblock printing and linoleum carving and printing, and founded a bunch of printing societies here in California. She loved the Sierras, and so a lot of her work is kind of in the plein air / arts and crafts style with very bold lines, and she hand colored all of these. She was a very good watercolorist as well. And so these slides will show you some examples of her gorgeous work. The other person I want to focus on is Sarah Matthews, who is contemporary. She's currently very active teaching printmaking and bookmaking. She is formally taught artist. She does like to emphasize issues that pertain to the Black experience here in America. She uses fairly simple images, but they're used in an extremely complex way, and she incorporates these into books, and these will show you some of her layered prints of just very simple carving material like we're going to be using today. So here's a word about our kits. Your kit will contain a speedball carving tool set, and I'll show you how to use it. It will also contain some high quality carving material that you can buy in sheets. I think it's terrific that erasers make marvelous carving material, so I'll be showing you how I use those. You'll also be getting two unused stamp pads, pristine, unused, and I just want to say a word about the kind of ink. Some of them are going to have pigment ink, and some of them will have dye ink. Dye ink can be used on pretty much any surface, not glass or plastic, it'll just rub off, but dye ink is very versatile. Pigment ink is a little more picky, and you have to use it on an absorbent paper. If you use it on any kind of slick or coated paper, it'll just rub right off and it'll take forever to dry. So it is important to know what kind of ink you're dealing with. And if you're not sure, you can just search it and see what they say about it. Your kit will also have a permanent marker and some tracing paper. What you're going to need to supply is a spoon, scissors, a number 2 pencil, and something to cut your block with. Now, I like this X-Acto thing where you can break off the little blades, but you can also use, I think these come with, they come with a little cutting thing which we'll show you up close, and you might be able to use that. But I like an X-Acto blade or a craft blade or something like that. And it's nice to have some scissors as well. You also are going to need some plain paper, and you're going to need a source for your images. So the important thing about the images is they should be very simple and bold. And so I'm going to be doing a couple out of this book. And the Dover books are a terrific source for these images. They are not copyrighted, they're open source, and they're terrific. So you can sometimes find them at thrift shops, you probably can find them at Remainders, and I highly recommend those. So do be careful about copyrighted material as best you can. So this is going to be your carving tool set. It's very handy in that all of the little blades and stuff are inside this. So you just unscrew this, you pull them out. We're going to be mainly using the smallest two because we're going to be doing fairly small carvings. So I'm going to put the bigger ones away in here. And then the way you put them in, you're going to see inside here there's a little ball and two crescent-shaped, little ball and two crescent-shaped little insets there. You're going to put your blade between the ball and the smallest crescent-shaped inset. And you might have to loosen it up and kind of wiggle it a little to get it where you need it. And then you tighten the little thing, forgot what it's called. And then you can just start carving. I'm going to demonstrate on this eraser where I have carved some diagonal lines, and these things are incredibly useful, these very simple, nothing kind of designs. I've done some parallel lines here, slightly uneven, which gives it a lot of interest. And don't forget, you have two sides on these erasers, so you can do both sides and use your carving material to its fullest extent. When you are carving, you hold the thing with your non-dominant hand, and you cut away from your hand so you don't gouge your fingers. And then you start with your smallest blade, because that's going to give you your most detail. And then you put the tool in the palm of your hand, hold it with your 3 first fingers, your thumb and your 2 first fingers there, and then guide it with your index finger. So you put it on there, and you just kind of make an angle, and you cut. So I'm going to, where it's black is where I want not to cut. Now, another thing you can do if you're having a little trouble with knowing where to cut and where not to cut, and I advise this on more intricate designs, is to draw it with permanent ink on there. If I can get this guy to work. It worked on paper. Here we are. Alrighty, so draw with permanent ink there, and that way it won't smudge off. You get the idea. Okay, and so then keep doing that, and just go slow. If you have to make any kind of curved design, I recommend turning your material rather than going around with your hand. You'll get a much better, and I'll just demonstrate here just for fun. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a curvy thing, see? So we're going to get a curve this way. Oh, that'll be kind of cool. I wasn't planning that, but that's what we got, and I almost cut my finger. Okay, so that's the idea for making your blocks on the erasers, and on your carving material that you can put more complex images, and I'm going to show you how to transfer now complex images. So I think we're pretty, if you have any questions about how to do this, play the video again. And then remember, we're going to have a Zoom session in a week so we can all talk about, the details, what trouble you ran into, if any, that sort of thing. Remember, too, that some old erasers are kind of brittle and won't carve real well. This one's kind of borderline. I've had it forever now. I tried to test all the erasers in the kits, but if you get a dud for some reason, and I will test them again before we make the kits up, so hopefully you won't get any duds. But remember too that Remainder sells erasers like this, used erasers, you know, really, really cheap. So if you need any erasers, just let us know. And once we open, you're going to be able to get erasers to your heart's content here. People are always donating them. All right, so transferring images. You can draw directly on your carving material if you want to. No problem there whatsoever. But if you don't want to start that way, and I get it, I'll show you how to do that. And this is why your tracing paper and your spoon are in, and you're going to need your spoon. So here we have some very bold images. You can see on this owl image, I have traced around it. And now I'm going to fill it in with number 2 pencil all the way through. I've done that already on this one, okay? So I've got some good number 2 pencil coating this whole thing. Some of you may already know how to do this. I'm going to take this off, and I am going to place it on my carving material. Ideally, I should have another piece of tape. I don't. So you want to put it pencil side down, and ideally it should be taped in there. So I'm going to cut this so I could tape it on there, like so. And then put this down, you know, the way I said, and try to preserve as much carving material as you can. I mean, it's not expensive, but hey, every little bit helps, right? So tape it on there, take your spoon, and rub. Rub, rub, rub. Try to get everything lifted up to be sure that it transferred. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so you are ready to carve. And remember I said, start with your smallest blade. And you might be able to do all of this just with the small blade, okay? And then you just hold it at an angle and then tap out your waste. And until you get the whole thing carved out. Now let me show you on these more intricate areas here. And if you mess up, hey, you know, you can start again or make the best of it. All right, so here we have some really kind of finicky detail. If you have a really fine area, I advise carving away from it and lifting up slightly. Let me look here. Here's its beak. I think this is I'm not sure, it might be a quetzal. Okay, and then remember when we're cutting, we want to turn it rather than turn our hand. I shouldn't be on my book. Here we are. And look at this tiny little eye. Okay, so let me show you how I do that. You just start at one end and you just turn, holding your carving tool in the same place. Okay, and then you get your little detail like that. Oh, I forgot to fill it in with the permanent marker. I advise doing that because the graphite in the pencil tends to smudge, and so I forgot to show you to do that. But you can remember to do that. Okay, and then we got this little detail here. So don't forget to add that step of going over it with the permanent marker if you want. I mean, obviously you can carve without it. Now, I usually use a brighter light than what I have right now because I'm old and my vision isn't marvelous. some of you younger people won't have the kind of trouble I'm having here. Okay, see how I'm turning it though, okay? And then dumping out the waste here like that. Okay, so we're just going to keep carving this little guy. Fortunately, this is kind of a simple thing. And do you see how I'm starting in the more detailed area and going out from it rather than cutting into the more detailed area? Same here. I'm going to start here and go down rather than try to risk messing up my detail. Okay. So be sure we get all these shapes the way we want them. Okay. Now, I want to show you another little thing. Hang on, I see a part here I should cut away. Okay, now if there were bigger spaces, you would use your next biggest, blade, but we don't need that on this one. Okay, I want to just show you something kind of like this. We're gonna cut around this. Then I want to show you how I might make little feathers in this thing. Let's pretend this is going to be the body of a bird or something. We might add things to it later. Turn the material, not your hand. Okay, so now it's really fun to add these little kind of feathery things in some of them, or dotty things. They add some detail to what might otherwise be plain. So you can just take these little tiny gouges in and out, up and down. It's nice if they're a little imperfect. Actually adds to the appeal, I think. Okay, so now what do? How do we get this so we can actually use the thing? Okay, that's when your blade comes in. So I like to have kind of a stack of paper here so I don't cut through to my table. We're going to do this. Good work. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut this out, and you can cut right next to the image, like so. That way you can position it a little better, you know. Here we are. Do it out here. Let me see how we're doing. And then scissors. I use scissors for this, but you can continue to use your blade. It doesn't matter. But I just use scissors. I find it's a really handy way to clean these up. So cutting away here. And actually, I am going to cut away here too. You could do this with your blade, but I'm going to cut with my scissors. Okay, there we are. Now, this is all raggedy here at the top. I don't know if you can see that, but it's all cruddy and raggedy at the top. So I'm going to cut that away with my scissors too. And with a, it's only carving material. If you mess up, I mean, remember you're learning. So, cut yourself some slack, and don't worry if you cut into something. You can somehow always make the best of these things, even if they're not exactly what you wanted. Okay, and then I'm going to have to cut away here because I don't want that on my image. So I'm going to do that. I could be using my bigger blade for that. I just don't feel like getting it out. And then we do a test print to see where I have to clean it up. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to put on our stamp pad. This one's slightly dry, so I really have to ink it up, but see that? Look at that. And then, okay, so that's good. I want to clean up some areas. You can see here, I want to clean that up. I want to clean this up. I want to make the eye a little bit more defined. So I'm going to do that. Right. Actually, I can cut this away this way with my scissors. I really like using these scissors for that, and I actually am going to do it here. And it's easier to do it if it has ink on it, because you can see where you want to clean up. Okay, and then here there's a little bit of stuff I don't want. You can also use your carving tool for that, but honestly, I think the scissors are easier to control. Okay, so let's see if I like it better now. Let's just see that. Yeah, way better, nice and clean, has a good raw look to it, which is what I really like. And so how do you clean these off? Well, don't get all worried about cleaning them off. I like to stamp them on a piece of paper, and then after you've done this a few times with a bunch of different stamps, you can get some pretty cool results with that. Okay, so then, yeah, we're going to dust this off and put it in the trash, and we're going to put this blade away so we don't stab someone. And let me just show you some things you can do. Well, actually, let's do this. I'm going to just cut this like so, and see what we get if we just do this. Now, these tiny little bits you actually can carve onto as well to get cool little accent things. I'm going to show you that in a second too. But right now I'm just going to cut away and see whether I like this, and if I don't, what I want to do with it. So, okay, so don't throw this stuff away. Save it and see, play with it a little bit. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Well, look at that. I mean, don't you just love that? I love it. This is going to be very, very useful. And I mean, who knew? I'm not even going to mess with it except to take this one little raggedy part off. Now, if you want more information, there are tons of good videos on YouTube. There is a really good book on stamp carving by Julie Balzer, B-A-L-Z-E-R, and she is a master carver, and she has a very, very good book, which is, in all fairness, where I got a lot of this information. I'm self-taught with this, but I owe it to her book that I'm able to, teach you guys how to do that. Okay, so you can see just with a really, really simple rinky-dink kind of carving that it's really cool. And you can do, shades of gray, maybe not 50, but 10. And then you can get some, you could use that on a or your art or whatever you want to do. Yeah, let me show you a little bit about layering. Okay, so I carved this eraser with just some geometric shapes that I drew first. This is actually one of my favorites, this little thing with circles connected by lines. And I mean, you can see this is not precise, but that to me adds to the appeal. So we're going to just talk a little bit about layering here. Actually, I'm going to do my lighter color first. It's really better to do your lighter color first. So let's see, what do I feel like doing? I think this would look cool with the Quetzal. So let's do this. And then you can just make, like an overall pattern with it, because you can see you can line it up. And if you prefer, and you want to do it more easily, you can turn it around. And then the long end, you can put, it's easier to register it. You can put it right against the stamp you just made. Okay, so this looks great the way it is, I think. This is pigment ink. And so I am using absorbent paper for the pigment ink. And then I'm going to do my cleanup right here, just because That's all you got to do. If you're using acrylic paints on your stamps, you do need to spray them with water. What I like to do is spray them with water over a water container. Just spray them with water really well. Rub them with your fingers or with a paper towel or something. Spray again, and then all the ink goes into the container, and it's really easy cleanup that way. But you really only have to do that if you're using acrylic paints on these. For these dye inks and pigment inks, you don't have to do that. So let's just see what happens with my Quetzal put over this in black. This is the sort of thing Sarah Matthews does, and it's extremely dramatic. I mean, just terrific. So, you know, we might do something like that. Personally, I think that looks amazing. So don't be afraid to experiment. I mean, obviously, you should experiment with different colors and different stamps over different stamps. Start with your lighter color first. Sometimes you may want to use the same stamp on another color. And so if you go from light to dark, you won't mess up your stamp pad like I did here by doing black first and then pink. I mean, this stamp pad recovered because it's nice and juicy, but it's really better to start with your lighter color first and then go to your darker color. And then we're going to do our cleanup, you know, the way we do, like so. Okay, so, and then don't forget too, if you want to kind of distress the edges, you have a little ink left over. I don't know who knows about distress, but you can also kind of just do like this at the edge of your piece and get a little bit of a distressed effect, and then that can add a little extra drama to your piece. So I hope you enjoyed this workshop. I enjoyed teaching it. And then we can get together on Zoom, and I'm fine with answering any questions you might have by email. If you want my email, Remainders can give it to you. You just let them know you want it, and it's fine with me. So have fun with this. And we want to thank the people who made these workshops possible. Okay, so this is made possible by a grant from the Pasadena Arts and Creative Commission and Culture Commission, Pasadena Arts and Culture Commission. And they generously have donated to Remainders, which is a nonprofit, and that makes these workshops possible, where we educate our community about underrepresented artists and people of color who are artists who may not be getting the recognition they should have. And then you get to kind of experience a little bit of what they do by learning these techniques. So have fun with it, keep in touch, and we'll see you next week on Zoom. Bye.